Oh, so it's gonna take freaking forever. "249 years ago, the greatest country in the history of the world was launched. A few brave men signed that document, the Declaration of Independence of the 13 states. They were either going to win it or they were signing their death warrant because they knew King George would hang them if they didn't win. We owe them a debt we can never repay for putting it all on the line." This is our country, the United States of America, where we do it badder, meaner, leaner, and sweeter than anyone else has or may ever in the future. It's Donald J. Trump.
Wonderful day. We celebrate our history, our heroes, our heritage, our great American flag, and our freedom. Every American heart should swell with pride. Every American family should cheer with delight. And every American patriot should be filled with joy. Because each of you lives in the most magnificent country in the history of the world. We will proclaim the ideals of the Declaration of Independence, and we will never surrender the spirit and the courage and the cause of July 4th, 1776.
And that's from our esteemed
Wonderful
president.
day.
Again, Donald J. Trump. It's hopefully a humbling day, and I hope more people realize the significance of July 4th. This is the 249th since the Declaration of Independence was signed.
When our nation was born in 1776, we were a nation of insurgents. Our founding fathers stood up to the most powerful empire in the world, declared their independence, and then somehow turned assertion into reality. They were a band of rebels who defeated the reigning incumbent of their era.
Yes, they were a band of insurgents, defeated the evil. Hope everyone is having a happy 4th of July, the real No King's Day. The Declaration of Independence was written by Thomas Jefferson, laid out the core reasons for separating from King George III's rule. And here's hoping we never go back to that. Here's a reading of the Declaration of Independence, signed 249 years ago today.
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them.
A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government.
Laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes.
And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government.
The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states.
To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good.
He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable only to tyrants.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures.
He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people.
He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers.
He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance.
He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures.
He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us.
For protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states.
For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent.
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas, to be tried for pretended offenses,
for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies.
For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments.
For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people.
Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us.
We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here.
We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity.
And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence.
They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled,
appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare
that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states.
That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown.
And that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved.
And that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce,
and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do.
And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence,
we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Guitar music is considered Monday through Friday, live 5 on the Evil Liberal FB Network, Rumble X, YouTube, and the Roy Blecker channel, all that good stuff. Independence Day, July 4th. 249th anniversary of the birth of the United States of America. Again, those brave souls back there knew when they signed that Declaration of Independence, they were either going to win that war against King George, the most powerful military force nation up to that point in the history of the world. And they were a band of ragtag, ditchbank Okie hillbillies. You know, there was only 3% of the people back then that were willing to go for it. The other 97%, because America had tried collectivism, socialism, communism, whatever. Oh, we're going to put everything in a big pile and all divide it up equally. And they were all starving to death. Most of them. It doesn't work. The emotional plea of all that stuff, and a few of those evil white boys, as a lot of you want to refer to us, said, you know what, we're not playing stupid. We're not going to be subservient to anyone. We're not going to just be here to survive and be a slave to someone else. That's why the 13 colonies formed as the United States of America and said, it's now or never. We have hope coming up with Donald J., putting us back on track, putting that spirit back in. As he said in the one big beautiful bill signing today, want to cover that one just a tad, because that was a very important signing. And this was probably the best minute and a half of him signing the bill. We're going to let Donald J. explain it as only he can.
It was something, and it was really something special. So the American people gave us a historic mandate in November. We won everything. We won the swing states, all 7 swing states. We won every one. That rarely happens. We won the popular vote. We won the districts, 2,750 to 505. That's why when you look at a map, it's all red, a little blue on each end, but it's all red. And by the way, red means Republican, just in case. But we made promises, and it's really promises made, promises kept, and we've kept them. This is a triumph of democracy on the birthday of democracy. And I have to say that the people are happy. They're happy. And I listened to a broadcast, and I read a couple of articles. They have the Democrats, they should have voted for it. They didn't vote for tax cuts. They didn't vote for taking care of people. They didn't vote, not one vote. And we knew that because their hatred of either the country or me or both is so great. They didn't vote at all, and it's terrible. But I just have to say, they have a routine. It's terrible, they say. Terrible, terrible. You saw that guy standing up for hours yesterday. He didn't know what he was even doing there. I say, when's he sitting down? He had a towel. He's wiping his face. That's not too elegant. But what is he? I said, what is he doing for so long? And he couldn't criticize the bill. He was criticizing everyone else and everything else. So they've developed, and this is according to the news media, they've developed a standard line, and we can't let them get away with it. Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, everybody's going to die. It's actually just the opposite.
That's the great Donald J. Trump. And this goes back to my, the eco freaks have been saying we're all going to die from diesel smoke. The whole thing. Everybody's going to, if we don't pass Obamacare, everybody's going to die. But everybody will get, we're going to cover everybody and make it cheaper. This is what Trump is pointing out. They are lying through their teeth, just like King George in 1776, or Stalin, or Mao, or Ping Pong, or Khrushchev, or Brezhnev, or who cares? All of them. Castro, Hugo Chavez, Steinbaum down there today in Mexico. They're all lying sacks of corrupt, communist, dictatorial pieces of ass. We're not going to put up with this anymore. They didn't put up with it in 1776, and those cats were willing to lay everything on their on the line. One guy, and I don't remember his name, he had the equivalent of $2 million back then. He'd have been Elon Musk territory. Lost it all and was proud to do it. Gave it all to free the people of the United States of America. I've said it many times, we don't want to be the generation that let the greatest country in the history of the world slip away. We've come close to it. Hopefully, we're not going to be silly enough, stupid enough, or scared enough not to do it. Steve Bannon on the War Room had some good film. One is from the John Adams film. We're going to play a couple clips, or some clips through the next, 30 minutes.
But we must always remember that a free constitution of civil government cannot be purchased at too dear a rate, as there is nothing on this side of Jerusalem of greater importance to mankind. My worthy colleague from Pennsylvania has spoken with great ingenuity and eloquence. He has given you a grim prognostication of our national future, but where he foresees apocalypse, I see hope. I see a new nation ready to take its place in the world. Not an empire, but a republic. And a republic of laws, not men. Gentlemen, we are in the very midst of revolution, the most complete, unexpected, and remarkable of any in the history of the world. How few of the human race have ever had an opportunity of choosing a system of government for themselves and their children. I am not without apprehensions, gentlemen. But the end we have in sight is more than worth all the means. I believe, sirs, that the hour has come. My judgment approves this measure, and my whole heart is in it. All that I have, all that I am, and all that I hope in this life, I am now ready to stake upon it. While I live, let me have a country. A free country.
Got about 1 minute, Roy.
That's from the HBO film John Adams, where he says, and he's making the case, and they signed on. We're either going for this because we're not living as slaves anymore. We're not letting somebody else dictate our future, our kids' future, and generations on. We had the chance to do it.
30 seconds.
We had the chance, and they took it. And we are the benefactors of that. And God bless them that they did, and they took that chance. We owe them a debt. As we said, we can never repay. As Sean said,
Here we go, 10 seconds.
Joining the Mighty Met, we'll pick up on the switch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band, joining our vast video audience in the eFlippy Network, Rumble, X, YouTube, on the Roy Blecker channel, all that good stuff. Independence Day, 249 years ago today. The greatest country in the history of the world was born. Few brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. They laid it all on the line because they knew once they signed that document, either they were going to win the war and free the then 13 colonies known as the United States of America, or they were going to be hung by King George. They signed the document, went for it, and 249 years later, despite everything else, no one else, no other country provides you with the opportunity, with the protections, the opportunity to advance yourself, to own property, to get the benefits of your own labor. Nowhere do you have this opportunity like you have it in the United States of America. You can put up any example you want, and we will shoot it down 9 ways to Sunday. The general quality of life in the United States of America today is the best it has ever been seen in all of recorded history. Steve Bannon had he played some clips from the movie John Adams and 1776. Just before we came on KMET, we laid the first part out of where John Adams is saying, this is the mission. We're not doing it. Hey, there's a lot of risk in that. We know what it is, but we really have no other alternative. Unless we want to be slaves to King George. Just from the movie 1776.
The Secretary will call the roll. And I'd remind you, gentlemen, that a single nay vote will defeat the motion. Mr. Thompson. New Hampshire. New Hampshire says yay. New Hampshire says yay. Massachusetts.
Massachusetts says yay.
Massachusetts says yay. Rhode Island.
So when they were there, and this is the debate prior to July 4th, really prior to July 2nd, it's when they started signing all the official documents and everything weren't done till July 4th. John Adams always argued July 2nd was really the date, but it was all finalized on July 4th, and that's what's on the Declaration of Independence, so that's where it is. One vote. Only one vote could have killed the whole enchilada. All 13 colonies had to agree. And there was some holdouts, and it was very dicey right up to the end.
Rhode Island says yay. Rhode Island. Maryland says yay. Virginia. Virginia says yay.
Mark me, Franklin. If we give in on this issue, posterity will never forgive us.
That's probably true, but we won't hear a thing. We'll be long gone. Besides, what will posterity think we were? Demigods? We're men, no more, no less, trying to get a nation started against greater odds than a more generous God would have allowed. First things first, John. Independence, America. If we don't secure that, what difference will the rest make?
Jefferson, say something.
What else is there to do?
Well, man, you're the one that wrote it.
I wrote all of it, Mr. Adams.
This is part of the debate. It isn't just like what just happened with the one big beautiful bill. Nothing is perfect. Nothing, I mean, I don't like a lot of things in the one big beautiful bill. But hey, at some point, that's what Ben Franklin, he was the oldest guy in there. What, Madison and stuff were like teenagers, early 20s. You had from every age group. Ben Franklin was almost 70, I think, when this went down. And you had everybody in Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine. But they said, hey, you know, they were arguing over the slavery and this and that. But it was there. It was there. That was the time. There, July 2nd. We got to make a decision. Are we going forward or not? And sometimes you just got to get to that point of coming to that position.
There it is, Rutland. You have your slavery. Little good may it do you. Now vote, damn you.
Mr. President, the fair colony of South Carolina says yay. South Carolina says yay.
North Carolina says yay.
North Carolina says yay. Georgia.
Georgia says...
Who will be remembered for it?
What do you mean?
I'm different from you, John. I'm different from most of the men here. I don't want to be remembered. I just don't want the responsibility.
Yes, well, whether you want it or not, James, there's no way of avoiding it.
Not necessarily, John. If I go with them, I'll just be one among dozens. No one will ever remember the name of James Wilson. But if I vote with you, I'll be the man who prevented American independence. I'm sorry, John. I just didn't bargain for that.
And is that how new nations are formed? By a non-entity trying to preserve the anonymity he so richly deserves?
Revolutions come into this world like bastard children, Mr. Dickinson, half improvised and half compromised. Our side has provided the compromise. Now Judge Wilson is supplying the rest.
That's James Wilson. He was the last one to hold out. And he was the last vote. He was the one vote that could have said, no, we're not going to sign the Declaration of Independence, or we're going to go for it. And you see with the slavery thing, for everybody that crows about or that, this and, a bunch of racists or that, we wouldn't be the free people we were today if they wouldn't sign the Declaration of Independence. Even though it wasn't perfect, they had to make the compromise to get the job done so they could get it on the path, like Ben Franklin said. It's like a bastard child. Nothing's perfect here, but this is the best we got, and we got to go for it. But most people don't. You even John Hancock or Ben Franklin or George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, everybody knows that. Hardly anybody knows James Wilson. But he was basically the last one. He was the last holdout.
James. I'm sorry, John. My vote is yea.
Mr. Secretary, Pennsylvania says yea.
The count being 12-0, with one abstention, the resolution on independence is adopted.
It's done. It's done.
Mr. Thompson, is the declaration ready to be signed? It is. Then I suggest we do so. And the chair further proposes, for our mutual security and protection, that no man be allowed to sit in this Congress without attaching his name to it.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I cannot, in good conscience, sign such a document. I will never stop hoping for our eventual reconciliation with England. But because, in my own way, I regard America no less than does Mr. Adams, I will join the army and fight in her defense, even though I believe that fight to be hopeless. Goodbye, gentlemen.
Gentlemen of the Congress, I say ye John Dickinson.
So there you see a holdout who believed the war, who believed they could not win. Thank goodness the rest of his colleagues did not go for that. It was a quite raucous debate. I think it went on for 3 days before they finally agreed to it on July 2nd. That's when they did it, finally got all the paperwork done. And you saw the big, beautiful document. The Declaration of Independence was signed. And here we are. Want to hit another clip from the John Adams movie.
King of Great Britain has waged cruel war against human nature itself in the persons of a distant people who never offended him. captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere.
Yes, you lay the evils of slavery at the feet of the king, but you say nothing of slavery itself, sir. Now, surely, if the trade is outlawed but ownership is not, then those unfortunate Negroes still in servitude will become a more lucrative commodity.
Well, that's not what I intended, Dr. Franklin. Slavery is an abomination and must be loudly proclaimed as such, but I own that neither I nor any man has any immediate solution to the problem.
So again, that gets back to the slavery issue. And yeah, they mostly agreed that it was wrong, but there was enough holdouts that it was going to happen. The United States wouldn't have been born, and you would have never got to the point of the Civil War or Lincoln or freeing the slaves and everything else if they wouldn't have ripped her off of that. Everything is, nobody gets 100% of what they want, ever. And sometimes we got to, and this, from 1776 to today, once it's over, hopefully you live to fight another day. It's like with the one big beautiful bill. Okay, it's done. We move forward, take the good parts of it. Hopefully we'll be able to work on some of the parts we disagree with or think need to be changed. But in the end, we've got to be one nation. Just like at the end of the debate on July 2nd, when the vote didn't go his way. He said, well, I don't think we can win. But we're going to die trying. Or we're going to succeed. If that's what everybody's going for, then we're in. Hopefully this gets to the point of where it sinks into more people. Nothing's going to be perfect. No one can wipe out every ill. Bad things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen. Everything in between. But it doesn't happen if you're not living in a free society where you have free will. And that's what those brave men and those 13 colonies recognized 249 years ago. It was a stunning achievement. The biggest army at the time, that would be almost, that would almost be the equivalent today of El Salvador going up against the United States. We just formed a navy and an army a year before. We didn't have ships. We didn't have weapons. We didn't have personnel anywhere close to what King George of England had, who was basically almost ruling the world. The British monarchy at the time, in the 1700s, was basically had control of most of the world. And that's why they were able to lay the hammer on everybody. So hopefully, more people will take this day and reflect. Not anything against having fun or barbecues or flying off fireworks, even though don't do it illegally. But I wanted to play this last anecdote that Bannon had with O'Donnell on his guest. Here we go.
1776. Patrick K. O'Donnell. Dickinson there volunteered, went to the army. How tough, brother, was this fight that they were about to get engaged in? That the storm clouds were there in Staten Island and New York Harbor, and they had basically a list of the signers of the Declaration they were going to round up. How tough was this fight to get, sir?
One of my favorite accounts is from a rifleman named McCurtain, who's in an outhouse, as all of a sudden he looks up and he says, "All of London seemed to float." The mass of the Royal Navy suddenly shows up in New York Harbor, hundreds of ships, and it's just this awe-inspiring sight where they're there to destroy the early United States.
Gotta love that, dudes. In the outhouse, here comes the British, excuse me, British Navy, excuse me again, British Navy, biggest Navy, all these ships. He looks down in there and says, "Man, that looks like all this stuff down there floating." And right he was. Nobody gave them, they gave them zero chance. Everybody thought King George, Great Britain, England was going to win this 111%. And mind you, that would, by the time they did this and the Declaration of Independence and stuff, there was a long war that went on after this. That was just the kickoff of it, basically. So, man, oh man, it's one of the, maybe, if not one, the defining moment in the world at that time, and maybe even today. It's something else. We'll get to some of the local stories as we close out July 4th, 1776 to 2025. Ice cream with the cops coming to Rancho Cucamonga July 17th, so make your plans for that if you're in the Rancho C area, or if you can afford the $5 gallon gas to get there. Paris cops make some new friends on July 4th. There's the Harupa Valley Station. They rescued a pup out there and doing some work on that, so good job keeping our pets safe and rescuing them from potential harm out there as we go. Palm Springs Mayor Steve Posnay gets probation, no jail time for taking bribes, reported in the Desert Sun. 2 teens, 14 and 16, arrested in a Redlands shooting. There's and we led the broadcast with, God bless America. Says it better than anything else. And again, happy 4th of July, the real No King's Day. The Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, laid out the core reasons for separating from King George III's rule. There it is in Congress, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, the Declaration of Independence. City of Corona says, and many others, watch the fireworks, are going to be out. It's at least $1,000 fine, as this gentleman may be experiencing, as the Temecula cops made a fireworks bust, as you see the guy in cuffs. This is interesting. Cesar Chavez Jr. was arrested by ICE for alleged cartel ties and being in the U.S. illegally. Got to give props to him at cops. $100,000 in merchandise, mainly tools, were recovered that had been stolen, and it appears to be sold at stores in and around the area. So got to give the Hemet cops props. They've been really on that. Man convicted of raping a woman and assaulting a girl in Banning from the Patch. Posted the Hemet one twice for emphasis on that. That's kind of a light news day, at least on the stuff like that, which is good. Maybe even the crooks and the criminals are taking a break on the 4th of July. Again, watch those fireworks. Hate to see somebody get a ticket or a hand blown off. There's lots of celebrations all over Southern California. You can turn on the tube and watch them. Whole thing. Be safe out there, especially my audience. I don't need to lose any of you guys. In fact, we want to grow it, so don't do anything that will get you behind the Gray Bar Motel or in the emergency room of that. But have some fun. Recognize this day. If you can, maybe rerun this show to family and friends, kids. Either today or throughout the weekend, maybe on Saturday or Sunday night. It's very important we remember. Because as Ronald Reagan said when he was president, we're one generation away from losing this whole deal and going back to the totalitarian rule we were under 249 years ago today. Thank God, your lucky stars, whatever, that those 3%ers, those brave dudes, said we're going for it. Little did they know it. Well, they might have thought it. They might have hoped it, but they didn't know they just gave birth to the greatest country in the history of the world. That'll do it for this week, as we usually say at this time. Mandatory, you're back here in 71 Hours Why. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid program.
All right, Roy. Well, take care. Have a great rest of your Independence Day.
We will, and we will see you on Monday.
All right. Bye now.
Got it.